If there's one theme that epitomizes Trump's presidency 6 months into his second term, it's bullying. As president, Trump has bullied migrants by using ICE to crack down on them, to revoke student visas, to ban asylum at the southern border. He bullies colleges and universities by pulling federal funding and prohibiting them from admitting international students, claiming they aren't doing enough to combat anti-Semitism while using anti-Semitic slurs himself. He bullies his political opponents, calling for investigations into former presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden. He attacks members of the squad. He derogatorily refers to Jewish Senator Chuck Schumer as a Palestinian. He bullies the free press too, of course. Well, joining me today is a guest who says he's dedicated his life to fighting back against bullies. Robert Reich is a political commentator, economist, professor, and served as Secretary of Labor under President Bill Clinton from 1993 to 1997. He's a best-selling author, and his latest book is coming up short, A Memoir of My America. It's out August 5th. He's also the subject of a new documentary, The Last Class, which follows Reich during his final semester of teaching. And he's a fellow very popular Substacker. Bob Reich, welcome to Mehdi Unfiltered. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to see you. It's been too long, Mehdi. You're one of my favorites.
Oh, I appreciate that. We love reading your stuff and watching your videos, and now reading your new book. I want to start with a question about the book. In the early chapters, you write about the challenges you faced as a young person with being bullied by other school children, especially over your height, and of course your Jewish background, facing anti-Semitism. How did your experience of being bullied as a child shape the way you've spent the rest of your life basically standing with unpopular causes against powerful opponents?
Well, I think that because I was so short, and I still am, a foot shorter than most of my peers, I was bullied. Every child who is slightly different is a target of bullies as a child, obviously, but I was particularly targeted, and I just felt I didn't have the word humiliated in my head as a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, but I felt humiliated. I felt powerless. I felt demeaned, and then, I found older boys who would sort of be my protectors, one of whom eventually, years later, when I didn't need older protectors, but years later I discovered that he had been himself bullied in a big way. His name was Mickey Schwerner. He was a civil rights worker in 1964. He was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan in Mississippi, and it changed my life. Quite honestly, Mehdi, I began to see bullying, not just in terms of, the toughs in school bullying me, but bullying all around in society. White supremacists bullying black people, the men bullying women, employers bullying employees, people who had the power to exploit other people and to put them down, using that power to do exactly that. And as inequality continued to widen, and has continued to widen in the United States, you have a small group of very, very wealthy and powerful people at the top who have an extraordinary ability to bully, led by the bully-in-chief, who's now in the Oval Office.
We're only 6 months into his second term, but we've seen him exercise some pretty strong bullying using the bully pulpit, but also the legal powers entrusted to the president to go after his opponents, as he said he would. You and I are journalists. You do a lot of journalism these days, as do we here at Zateo, and the media is in his crosshairs. We've seen the $16 million settlement with Paramount, the attack on 60 Minutes, journalists quitting, him suggesting journalists should be fired, him suggesting journalists should be imprisoned, Stephen Colbert losing his show, a comedian who makes fun of the president. Why do you think the CBSs and the ABCs are rolling over so easily when faced with attacks from Trump? Isn't the best way to stop a bully to stand up to a bully and not roll over? Because we all know when you roll over for a bully, the bully comes back for more. He doesn't go away. Why are the big media corporations rolling over? Why aren't they fighting back? Liking this video? Then don't just watch. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive content, then you have to head to zeteo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
Because they have other financial interests.
Yes.
And they are afraid that this bully in chief will use whatever it takes. I mean, he has no compunctions about using the government as a whole, any piece of the government, to get his way, to distort the purpose of, for example, the Federal Communications Commission when he goes after CBS. And he'll do it with the Federal Trade Commission and Amazon. That's why Jeff Bezos, for example, is putting a crimp, actually making it impossible for columnists at the Washington Post to criticize Trump. And you see it all over, Mehdi. It's the way in which a bully, tyrant, and let's maybe use the word tyrant because bully is a polite way of describing what's happening. His tyranny is actually silencing critics. That's one thing that a tyrant does, silence critics. And you can see even with the deals he's making with universities, like the recent one with Columbia University, universities are also, just like journalists, just like media outlets, they are also places where the truth and criticism can emerge in a free society. He doesn't want that. Yeah. He doesn't want Columbia University to criticize him. He doesn't want anybody there to criticize him. He doesn't want Harvard. He doesn't want any university. He doesn't want law firms to have their partners take him on in terms of pro bono lawsuits.
On the campus issue, on the university front, you are obviously a professor, have been at Berkeley. You've taught all around the country and the world. You taught at Harvard, which has been the subject of a lot of Trump's ire. Harvard has tried to fight back in a way that Columbia perhaps hasn't. The President of the United States, we're witnessing him threatening to cut off federal funding, block foreign students, basically take down Harvard. Seems to be his goal. How dire is the situation for these quite wealthy Ivy League schools, but still caught in the crosshairs of the most powerful government in the world? And how worried are you, as someone who is an academic, about academic freedom right now in Trump's America?
Even if I weren't an academic, I would be worried about academic freedom because you don't have a free democratic society, small d democratic, unless you have academic freedom. His taking on Harvard is, I think, symbolic of what he is trying to do with all truth tellers, all fact finders around this country. Harvard, of course, is the most preeminent, oldest university in the United States, and it's very wealthy. But the fact is that Harvard has limited funds, and when you are taking away a huge portion of its research funding, and you are saying foreign students cannot attend Harvard, you are squeezing Harvard, and like a tyrant, bully tyrant, you're using all sorts of methods that the federal government has. You're using every possible avenue. You do not have any compunctions about using the ability of students from another country to come to Harvard, which should have nothing to do with what Harvard has criticized Trump for doing. It's just like the Federal Communications Commission with regard to CBS. You are just, there is no constraint on you, and you are vindictive, and you are known to be vindictive. And that combination, lack of constraint, the willingness of everybody around you who wants to show loyalty, to be as loyal as possible, to do exactly your bidding, and your vindictiveness, that's what tyranny is all about.
And you say bullying, you say tyranny. It's also a very fascistic move, is it not, to go after media and universities and bully them into submission. It's what Orban has done in Hungary. It's what Putin has done in Russia. It's what Mehdi has done in India. This is a global authoritarian playbook, is it not?
It is indeed, and it's not new. I mean, it's what we saw in Germany in the 1930s and in Italy in the 1930s. We saw it in Spain, the Axis powers. I mean, after all, and Stalin. I mean, this is an old playbook, but many of us, particularly those of us born after the Second World War, grew up in a country and at a time when we thought that democratic, small d, values were entrenched and could not easily be overridden. We are, I for one, I think I speak for many, are shocked at how fragile all of these democratic institutions actually are.
If you're watching this, you know that the mainstream media is failing us. Corporate-controlled, billionaire-owned news isn't just biased, it's distracting. That's why I launched Zeteo, to cut through the noise and seek the truth. But I can't do it all. That's where Ground News comes in. It's an independent platform that gathers thousands of articles and puts them all in one place with the context you need. When you click on a story, you'll be able to see who's covering it and compare different headlines from outlets around the world with a visual breakdown of each source's political bias, reliability, and who owns it. Take this story about Israel's starvation of Gaza. One scroll will show you over 100 ways it's being framed. See who's covering the story. See who's not covering the story. So you know where your news is really coming from. See for yourself and subscribe. Scan the QR code or go to ground.news/Zeteo. You'll get 40% off the unlimited Access Vantage subscription. That's less than $5 a month. What are you waiting for? You served as Secretary of Labor under President Bill Clinton during his first term in the White House. You have Trump right now trying to undermine collective bargaining rights for federal workers. He's rewriting or repealing over 60 Labor Department rules and regulations, including a minimum wage for home health care workers, protection for migrant farm workers. He's preventing the Occupational Safety and Health Administration from holding employers accountable for unsafe workplace conditions. He's doing all of this, and yet he pitches himself as a pro-worker, blue-collar president, and millions of Americans, including millions of working-class Americans, buy this bullshit.
They buy the bullshit because, in partly because the Democratic Party is not any longer the party of American workers. And so the Democratic Party doesn't really have a rejoinder. What the Democrats need to do right now is to say, look, we not only are the party of working people, we are responsible for Social Security, for Medicare, for a 40-hour work week, for time and a half overtime. We are responsible for the bargaining rights of labor unions. We, Democrats, are going to return to our roots. You want to make America great again? Well, we'll make America great again by returning to the kind of a democracy and the kind of economy we, Democrats, were proud to create in the 1930s under Franklin D. Roosevelt and continuing onward after that. You see, I think the Democratic Party itself, Mehdi, is, and you and I have talked about this before, but let me just stress this point. The Democratic Party has abandoned the working class. And by abandoning the working class, it has opened up the possibility of a demagogue, tyrant, fascist named Donald Trump to come in and claim that he is the spokesperson of the working class without any competition. Obviously, if you are 60% of Americans have no college degree, if you're among that 60%, you are especially burdened right now, and you are very, very liable. You're vulnerable to these pitches by a con man that says, he's going to be representing you.
On the issue of the Democratic Party and letting voters down, you've called Zohran Mamdani, the party's mayoral candidate in New York, corporate Democrats' biggest nightmare, you've said about him. You've said the party should embrace him as the future. What was it about Mamdani and his campaign specifically that stuck out to you?
Well, it's because he is talking about the things that people care about, not just affordability, but he's talking about actually making the country work for average people, making democracy a real thing. He's a young voice like AOC. These are the people who ought to be the leading voices of the Democratic Party. And the fact that you have so many corporate and financial Democrats from Wall Street who are just livid about Mamdani. Mamdani, it proves my point. I mean, they should not they should not have so much power in the Democratic Party. They have power because they are the big money behind the Democratic Party. Well, the Democratic Party ought to get rid of that source of big money. It doesn't need it. It shouldn't. It undermines the integrity.
Well, they would say they do need it because they're up against a party that at the last election was funded by the richest man in the world.
Well, the fact of the matter is that small donations have become more significant than big corporate donations when you're running for office. And the Democratic Party ought to know that, ought to learn that if it doesn't know that.
Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, are these the right leaders for the Democrats right now? They don't seem to have a fighting spirit. They don't seem to have a backbone. They're obsessed with bipartisanship, with working with the Republicans. They can't bring themselves to even endorse Zohran Mamdani, their own party's mayoral candidate in their own city.
I think it's ridiculous and even disgraceful. They ought to be endorsing him. They ought to be out in front. They ought to be showing the Democrats the way forward. Instead, they're at the back of the line. They are the most conservative of Democratic representatives and senators in Washington. That's not where the leadership is going to come from anyway. I mean, I have been a Democrat since 1793. I mean, I know the Democratic Party. I have been in the Democratic Party. There is no longer a Democratic Party as such. There is a big financial machine called the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee. There is also on the Republican side a bunch of zombies, just absolute zombies that follow Donald Trump. That's what we have today. We don't have two governing parties as we did before.
One reason that the Schumers and Jeffries don't like Mamdani is that he's an outspoken critic of Israel. He said in an interview with me, in fact, he said he'd arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to New York while he was mayor. Back in February 2024, you released a video calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, in which you said, let's be clear, to take a stand against the atrocities of Netanyahu's government is not to be pro-Hamas or anti-Israel or anti-Semitic, it's to be pro-human rights. It's been about a year and a half since you released that video. The actions of the Israeli government have only gotten worse. The death toll has only risen. Meanwhile, there are still Democrats who refuse to stand up against Israel. Just this week, we saw a big number of Democrats, not a majority anymore, but a big number of Senate Democrats refusing to stop selling weapons to Netanyahu in the Senate. What do you say to a Democratic Party, to Democratic Party politicians like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker and John Fetterman? What do you say to them about their complicity in this Gaza genocide?
Well, I say, first of all, you are complicit if you are not calling it out. Number two, there is a vast difference between being anti-Semitic and being anti-Netanyahu and what Netanyahu is doing. I mean, I am Jewish. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm even in favor of Israel and a Jewish homeland. And I know that there is a lot of controversy about that position, but I am deeply anti-Netanyahu and his government. What they have done in Gaza is a war crime. It is genocide. He is a war criminal. And to support him, to give him armaments, to continue to make it easier for him to do what he is doing in Gaza, 60,000 people in Gaza, many of them children, have already perished. Many of them are starving. There's no excuse for this. Absolutely none.
What do you make of the use, and I would say abuse, of anti-Semitism by supporters of Israel? We have, as you say, white supremacists in this country back in vogue. You have a Donald Trump, a white supremacist or white supremacist enabler at best, in the White House saying things like Shylock bankers. Meanwhile, Jonathan Greenblatt, the ADL, major American Jewish organizations, are obsessed with pro-Palestine students and campuses and what's on their placards. Are we looking in the wrong place for the anti-Semitism?
We're looking, yes. Not only are we looking at the wrong place, but the Trump administration is using anti-Semitism as it is using, what is it called? DEI.
Yes.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's using transgender athletes. All these things it's using as pretexts for getting control over American universities. I mean, why can't we see it for what it is? It is a pretext.
Yeah.
I mean, American students, if they want to demonstrate, they should be allowed to demonstrate. This is a First Amendment issue. If you don't have freedom of speech on our college campuses, where are we going to find it?
Just before we finish, do you think the reason that Democrats were slow to jump on the Jeffrey Epstein controversy, which is so damaging to Trump right now, is because they know their own former president and party leader, your former boss, Bill Clinton's name is almost certainly somewhere in those files, given his friendship with Epstein and the number of times he flew on Epstein's plane. No one's suggesting any wrongdoing, but that clearly he was linked to Epstein. Is that why the Democrats have been so slow to jump on this very bad scandal for Trump?
I really don't know. I hope that's not the case. But the fact of the matter is, there are so many scandals associated with Donald Trump. There are so many. I mean, the degree to which he is taking bribes from foreign governments, against the Constitution's emoluments clause, the degree to which he is violating the Constitution in terms of usurping power of Congress and basically turning his back on what the federal courts are saying. It's all a scandal. Frankly, the Jeffrey Epstein issue, I'm interested in it mainly because it may bring him down if none of these other things bring him down.
Well, it's the only thing his base seem to think is a scandal. But you're right, there are bigger scandals, of course, out there. Last quick question. You've just written your memoir. You look back on your life going back to 1793. Just kidding. You're much younger than that. But looking back on your life and career and what you've had to fight for, to young people watching, how do you keep hope alive?
Well, I keep hope alive, number one, because of young people. I still do a little bit of teaching, and I hang out with a lot of people in their 20s and early 30s. They keep me happy and excited, and they are dedicated and committed to making this country better. They're going to inherit this mess, and they're going to do a great job cleaning it up. So that's number one. Number two, Mehdi, I know history. And in the United States, we had a Gilded Age starting in 1880s, 1890s, that was followed when Americans just got so disgusted by inequality and by the corruption, by what was called the progressive era. And I think the pendulum is inevitably going to swing back. And the further it swings in the direction of tyranny, the more it's going to swing back in the direction of democracy.
I hope you're right. Robert Reich, the book is called Coming Up Short, a Memoir of My America. It's out on August 5th. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mehdi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.